Konbanwa Planeswalkers. You're listening to Radio Kyoto, coming to you from our studios, residing on the melting hot side of the multiverse this evening. And this week, we're continuing our deep dive into Ravnica Allegiance, taking a look at it from the limited lens. We're breaking up the set review by guild, given that this is Ravnica guild set, and we're also talking about one of the colors within that guild pairing as well. Check out the previous videos for some of the earlier ones, but now we're taking a look at Gruul, and we'll start with their Gruul uncommons, then the Gruul commons, and then taking a look at Green and their uncommons, followed lastly by the Green commons. But before we can rate the cards, let's discuss our rating scale. Uh, First, we got bombs. This is mostly the mythic and rares that by themselves win the game. Uh, Rating of 4 is for an influencer, something you see in the draft that's pulling you into that color pairing or color, or maybe one of the members of the guilds. Also provides some flexibility there. These are what you're probably seeing picks 2 through 4. If you're seeing later as well, that's a good sign that a guild is open and you should slide into it. 3 is for playables. This makes up the majority of your deck. These is what you want to be filling your deck with. So these are picks, 5 through 10, kind of what you're looking to have even on the wheel. Fringe, these are the cards at number 2 here. Those get a rating of 2. That are just outside of the playables. These probably end up being your 21st, 22nd, 23rd selections in your deck. Those are the ones, if you're in draft, you're looking to replace with your pack 3, an upgrade on those. And number 1 is just unplayables, janky rares, some of the just horrible uncommons out there that just aren't fun to play with. So, with that, we are going to dive in to our first card, Clan Guild Mage. 1 red mana, 1 green mana, for a 2/2, so just like all the other guild mages. Activated abilities has a one generic mana, 1 red mana. Tap it. Target creature cannot block this turn, so a very offensive spell. So that's more for the aggro side of this ability. And then 2 blue, or sorry, excuse me, two generic mana, 1 green. You can tap it, and target land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature with haste until end of turn. It's still land. Keep in mind you can do that one on your opponent's turn, use that 4/4 as a blocker. I see that ability more as like the controlling aspect of Rakdos. Pretty decent to get a 4/4 out of it. Kind of turning your own 2/2 sideways and turning it into a 4/4 for 3 mana for the turn. Not too bad, not great. Although solid, it's not going to pull you into Gruul like maybe some of the other cards we'll see here. And as such, this is getting a 3.0. All right, a Zerta Goblin. This is the best 2-drop that you'll be playing in Gruul. This thing is a monster. 1 red mana, 1 green mana for a 2/2. So already 2/2 for 2. Solid bear with Riot. All right, so this can enter with haste or +1/+1 counter on it. So you could have a 3/3 for 2 mana on turn 2. That is a pretty good value. Or you're just coming in with the 2/2 for haste onto an empty board and jumping in for 2. Could be an enabler for Rakdos with their ability as well, just getting an early 2 damage. So I like this guy early. I think he's quite solid. You see this guy, it sounds like, hey, that Gruul beatdown might be available, and it's worth sliding into, and thus this is a 4.0. All right, we'll take a look at the split card for Gruul, the Collision Colossus. So Collision side instant is 1 generic mana, and then the hybrid, either 1 red or 1 green, so 2 total mana, to deal 6 damage to target creature with flying. So pretty much plummet. Take down something with flying. Solid, pretty good removal. Conditional to some degree. You gotta make sure that the other side has a flyer you want to take down, but that's relevant. There's a good number of flyers, I think, that are there. Mostly, though, 3 toughness is kind of the key watcher there. on flyers. Collision side of the house, one red mana, one green mana, so also 2 mana. Target creature gets +4, +2 against trample until end of turn. So this side I like a lot better. It is giving creature trample +4. The +2 on your side probably keeps you alive with this creature. It's going to trade 1 for 1. Ideally, you're lining this up with a blocker in which your creature survives and theirs doesn't. Unfortunately, they get to pick the creature to some degree because they're lining up with blockers, but you get to choose when to play this card as well. So you can hold on to it and kind of attack it as that. I like the modality of this, so just removal in the air or removal when it seems situational for you. So with this, we're giving this a 4.0. Rhythm of the Wild. This is an uncommon that is an enchantment in red green, and this is one generic mana, one red mana, one green mana. Creature spells you control cannot be countered. Okay, I'm ignoring that text. I don't know if that's super relevant here in limited. Sure, there's going to be some counter spells out there, but probably that's more situational. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. This is awesome. This is giving every one of your creatures that comes in either haste or an additional +1/+1 counter on it. This note that Riot can stack if you're playing another Riot creature, like that 2/2 Goblin we saw a little bit earlier. You're playing that a little bit later, and this is already on your board. That has double Riot, so all of a sudden that becomes a 3/3 with haste or a 4/4 for 2 mana. This, especially in Gruul, is what you want to be doing. Playing a ton of creatures, keeping your opponent on the back foot with them having haste, or setting them up with all these monstrous +1/+1 counters. Note that's a little bit of a non-bow with some of the adapt creatures out there. If you give them +1/+1, because you're not allowing them to adapt for maybe a greater adapt amount. So you have to keep an eye on that if you are playing some of the adapt creatures there. Having said that, you're smarter than that. This is easily the best uncommon in the entire set. Should be treated like a rare when you see it. We're giving this a 4.5. This is the best rating that you'll see coming out of Gruul, and best rating you'll see coming out of this entire set in the commons and uncommons. This is the card you want to be playing for. Enchantments, going to be harder to remove, and this guy can take over all by himself because you're playing creatures in this guild. Sunder Shaman is the CCDD creature in this set for Gruul. So 2 red mana, 2 green mana for a 5/5. Great stats just for that. It also says that this creature cannot be blocked by more than one creature, so it's coming in with a beating. It says that when it deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Probably not a ton of artifacts out there you're necessarily looking to beat down against, but there are some enchantments, like the one we just saw, some enchantments out there that are particularly pesty. So I think you're going more so for that. Also, just noting some of the artifacts that are out there, Junk Troller and the Giant Gate Colossus, those kind of put a brick wall in front of this guy. So if you can pump this guy to some degree, get him around that Junk Troller or the Colossus out there, you can then destroy that artifact and it opens you up pretty good. Other than that, there's that 3/7 alligator we saw last video. And there's only 3 other 6/6s out there that really get in front of this guy, and they come down on turn 6 or later. In the common uncommon realm in which we're looking at, maybe there's going to be some rares out there that get in front of this guy. But this is great stats. Even if he's coming down on turn 5 for you, the only thing that you're really watching out for is Junk Troller, which it's not great, and the alligator, which okay, if they're playing black, maybe you keep an eye that they got that guy that's gonna completely counter this. Otherwise, they got to answer it with removal, or you're attacking every turn, and they can't block it with one or more creatures. They can't stack it up against this. You're pretty much pinging away one of their creatures, or they're taking 5 each time. So this is a 4.0 again. Everything Gruul wants to be doing, even early with aggro or late. You're able to play this, and he starts the beatdown train. We got Balrock Clan Crusher. So 3 generic mana, 1 red, 1 green for a 4/4. All right, not a great rate, but he's got an ability. You tap it, remove a +1/+1 counter from any creature you control, and this will deal 2 damage to any target. So this is more of that controlling Gruul side of the world. You want to be able to play this. You got some +1/+1 counters out there. At the end of your opponent's turn, then you tap this guy, and he's dealing 2 damage. He untaps immediately. Maybe you can readapt. Maybe that's one of the teamer splashes with this guy. So you could be in the teamer deck and splash him in, and you just continue to adapt and pay 4 mana, 3 mana, 5 mana, whatever your adept is, and remove one of those counters off this guy and keep doing that. You do that, the opponent's upkeep. 2 damage is real, and you can keep doing that to them or pinging away at their creatures. So this is going to be more on the controlling side. Not bad. I will say also, the 4 toughness, 4 power matters. That's a deal in this set. So this guy enables that, just like a lot of the other Gruul ones. So this guy's solid. You'll play him, but keep in mind he's going to be more on the controlling side. Taking a look at the first common, Rubble Belt Runner, 1 generic mana, 1 red mana, 1 green mana, for a 3/3, cannot be blocked by token creatures. Okay, that's pretty conditional out there, but a 3/3 is solid, and we'll continue the train. 3/3 for 3 will give you a rating of 3. You're playable. Rubble Belt Slinger. So this is the hybrid card in Gruul. So 2 generic mana, then either 1 red or 1 green. So 3 total mana for a 2/3 with reach. And I love this guy with reach. Green is always looking to take care of flyers. Red as well. 2/3 I think is the magic number for flyers. They're, as far as power and toughness goes, this guy will take care of them until they, up their flyers to some degree. But this guy's going to keep them at bay. He's great in Gruul because of that. Good in Teamer as well, which or even Simic because of the green modality. But then also in Rakdos, so very versatile. Making this pick early is not going to commit you to any one of the guilds initially. I think you'll take this guy. You'll even take 2 of these guys. I'll put him at a 4. Savage Smash. So the removal card for Gruul at the common level. So this is 1 generic mana, 1 red mana, 1 green mana. Sorcery speed. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It then fights another creature you don't control. So 3 mana kill card. Solid. It's a little bit more dependent than some of those other ones out there, though. It requires you to have a creature. It requires that creature to have then +2 more power, then toughness than the other creature out there. It's also sorcery speed. So removal, fine, but it's not the greatest. You'll see better ones out there in the other guilds with what they're doing at this 3 mana common slot. With that, this gets a 3. If you're in Gruul, you're already in Gruul, you're going to want this card because it's a good form of removal to help you open up some of your attacks. Frenzied Arynx is the last common we'll be taking a look at, and 2 common mana, 2 general mana, and then 1 red and 1 green for a 3/3 with Riot with Trample. So this either comes in as a 4/4 Trampler for 4, solid, or a 3/3 Haste Trample, with that's just a good rate. I also like that you can pump this guy late. I think that this is the best common that you have in Gruul. I think you'd love to have multiple of these. This is one of the better 4 drops I think you're looking at. And I think as such, we're giving this a rating of 4.0. All right, on into green here. We're taking a look at the uncommons. This is the Silhava Hana Wayfinder. And for one generic mana, one green mana, you get a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. So you dig a little bit, 4 cards deep. You may reveal a creature card or land card from among them and put that on the top of your library. Put the rest on your library in a random order. So I like this digging ability. It's good early. Maybe you're looking for a land. You can keep a 2-lander if you got this guy in your hand because you'll get your 3rd mana. You can also play him late and you put down your 2 mana, you dig for a creature, and the next turn, you're set up for some gas. So, and 2/1 body is nothing to sneeze at. He's probably trading or chumping at the very least there. So I think pretty solid. We're giving him a 3.5. Tower defense, 1 generic mana, 1 green mana. For an instant, creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain reach until end of turn. So this is fine. It's pretty situational, probably matchup dependent. You got to be more on the controlling side because you can't have all your creatures turn sideways attacking and then still expect to play this. So if you're setting yourself up for control, you grab one of these. The with reach is okay, but think about it even outside of just the reach. This is going to allow all your creatures to survive a defensive onslaught. Hopefully you're able to knock down some of theirs. Maybe you get some double blocks in there, which will allow you to take out some of their creatures. I think that's more so where you're looking to line up than the double blocks to take them down, knowing you're not going to lose any creatures. Having said that, this is going to be a 2.0. It's pretty situational. You got to have a lot of creatures on the board to make this relevant, and so do they. Gatebreaker Ram, 2 generic mana, 1 green for a 2/2. As long as we'll read the first part of the text first. It gets +1/+1 for each gate you control. So you keep adding gates to the board. This keeps getting bigger. As long as you control 2 or more gates, it has vigilance and trample. So 2 gates, you're staring at a 4/4 vigilance trampler for 3 mana, and that ain't too bad. And honestly, in green, you want to be playing the gates. The green, even into red. Every color's kind of got their guild gates cards, which makes you want to play 5/4 mana guild gates. But Gruul, I think, is especially a great place for it because of one, if you're on that more controlling side, you can afford to play them. 2, you got a great red card with gates. You got this card with gates, which is quite solid as well. It only keeps getting bigger and bigger. Hard to answer. And I'd play this guy even in just any green or Simic deck or Gruul and throw a few gates in, even if they're a little bit, kind of the off color to it, kind of stretching yourself into Jonder or Teamer. Gruul Beastmaster. So this is a 2/2 for 4 total mana. It's 3 generic and 1 green. Has Riot, so it could be a 3/3 or come in with haste. Whenever it whenever it attacks, another creature you control gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. So if it's a 3/3, you get +3/+0 to another creature whenever they both attack. Actually, the other one doesn't even need to be attacking, so I don't know why you want to give +X+0 to something that's not attacking, but you do. It has to be another target creature you control, so it can't be the Beastmaster itself. It is, I'm not loving the rate at which it comes in. I think its ability is so-so. You attack with this, they're pretty much going to take care of it. That 2, even 3 toughness, they're going to line up for. So maybe you get them in as the 2/2 and you catch them by surprise the first time through, but you won't be able to do it the next time through. If you play it as the 3/3, I think they're setting up to stop this and chump in front of whatever else you boost up here. So pretty situational, not loving it. I think this is a 2.0 and something you can pick up, but I think makes it around the table a bit. Enraged Ceratok. So this is a 2 generic mana, 2 green mana, so total of 4 mana for a 4/4. And great rate just at that. 4/4 for 4 mana. Loving this. This is another one of those 4 drops you want to be playing, just like the earlier one that we saw that had the 3/3 riot. Enraged Ceratok cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. That is a good ability. They can't just throw some little chumpy guy in front of it. You're going to take out some meat with this. Even sometimes they're not going to be able to block it, so it's coming in and it's beaten down. I like this card. I think you're playing a few of them, and I I'd take this guy in my 4-drop slot with a few of them. Wilderness Reclamation. So this is 3 generic mana, 1 green mana for an enchantment. So 4 total mana. At the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. So you play this guy on your 4th turn and untaps all your mana. You got 4 open mana. So what that's telling me is you want to be playing something that's instant speed type of world. So you want to be Simic, maybe even Bant, splashing in with white. You could be over in Jund, I guess, to some degree with the black instance, but really you're probably better off in Simic in that world, playing this card, and that's pretty powerful. It allows you to have your counter spells open. You can adapt. On your opponent's turn, you could adapt with. On your turn, it has so many mana sinking type options out there for you to be able to work with, and as such, I think this is absolutely playable. In Simic, it doesn't cross over into both guilds as great, but you'll seek this guy out, I think, to some degree. He's 3, maybe even 3.5 I'd go up to, but I think there's better things you want to be doing at the 4-drop, which was why I dropped him down. If you're in Gruul, you just want to be slapping down creatures. If you're in Simic, this is okay to play on 4. Trollbred Guardian. So for 4 generic mana, 1 green mana, you get a 5/5. So 5 total mana for a 5/5. Good rate. He could also adapt. This is our first adapt. So he'll adapt 2, which means putting 2 +1/+1 counters on him. Make him a 7/7. So you can make this guy a 7/7 for paying 2 generic mana and 1 green mana after he comes down. So if you got the mana for it, 8 total mana, you got a 7/7 right then and there. Or you can parse that out over the next turn, whatever it may be. Also, creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have trample. Every one of those creatures. So this is great with adapt. This is great with the Gruul Mechanic Riot, where you can put the +1/+1 counters on your creature. This is a phenomenal control finisher, where you have been building up your Gruul creatures with the +1/+1 counters. You slap this guy down, turn all your creatures sideways, and all of a sudden they have trample, and that's a real problem for your opponent to react to. So I love this card. I think he is the best uncommon in green. You will snatch this guy up. It's going to be tough to play 2 of them at a 5 count, but I mean, if you see one of them, you're made in the shade, and this is kind of bringing you in, and as such, this is a 4.0. I'm playing either Simic or Gruul if I see this guy. Regenesis. So for 3 generic mana, 2 green mana, so 5 total mana instant, return up to 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Instant speed, you can kind of keep this guy open. You do this on your opponent's turn. At their end step, you untap, and you got these 2 permanents in your hand. Honestly, you're probably just doing it with creatures, so you got that black a recursion card where you can return creatures to your hand. You're probably better off just splashing into black. If you're in Gruul, maybe it's some wildness if you're getting over there and trying to get there if you're in Simic. So this card screams a lot more needed of Simic help, and you're paying for it with the mana cost. So not super high on it. It's much more limited, giving it a rating of 2.0. Biogenic Upgrade. So it's sorcery speed. You pay 4 and 2 generic mana. Distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. Then double the number of +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. So you're at least adding +6/+6 to the board, divided however you want to do it. If you got other creatures out there with +1/+1 counters, it's doubling what's already on there as well. So the sky is the limit when it comes to this. I think this is quite solid in Simic. This is quite solid in Gruul. Because of the +1 counters, it's going to be more of that controlling aspect of it. But you're going to want 1. We're giving it a 3.0. You don't want multiples of these because 6 mana is still a lot, and potential for blowout as you're kind of targeting these creatures. Cerulean Caretaker, this is our first common. So for 1 green mana, you get a 0/3 defender. Okay. Tap an untapped creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. So you're tapping 2 creatures for 1 mana. Not a fan. Giving that a 1.5. You're going to see this at the end of your drafts. Just going to be one of the last few cards that's kind of sitting around in there. Open the gates. 1 green mana, sorcery speed. Search your library for a basic card or a gate card. Reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. This, I think, is the best turn 1 play you can do in this set. Better than putting one of those 1/1 enablers onto the field where you can attack your opponent. Controlling, I love this. It allows you to splash pretty much anything you want that's one off color, because you can search it up with your gate. You can have not even a green gate in your deck, and this will allow you to go fetch it. It just is where green wants to be. You're searching for one of those gates. You play it on turn 2. You could play this on turn 2 and then play your gate right after it. Phenomenal card. I would take multiples of these because it means I can play less mana. Fixes across all my gate colors, so I could have 1 of every gate, and just go search up whatever I needed at whatever my hand's telling me. So with this 4.0, this is, I'm going to call it the second best common in green. Stony Strength. 1 green generic, or sorry, just 1 green mana, 1 mana. Instant speed. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Untap that creature. So, okay, trick. Not the greatest. 1 mana, kind of like that. Like, you can always find 1 mana sitting around, right? That +1/+1 counter, you're hopefully putting this on one of your creatures to turn around a trick, like maybe an attack in which you've made. Turn it in your favor, just over on top of them. Keep your creature alive. Untap your creature. He's back for blocks. Awesome. So he's still in there for blocking. You can also do this when you've already attacked and the opponent's trying to race you back and attack. You untap your creature. You get in front of whatever they had. Now it's got a +1/+1 counter for the next turn whenever you want to attack. It's okay. It's solid. You're going to want to watch. You don't want to put a +1/+1 counter on one of your creatures with adapt, because it won't allow you to adapt it later. So kind of a little bit of a issue there. If that's one of your creatures you want to do it with. So, but it's an okay trick. 3.0. It's not bad to have 1. Sorrowfoam Hybrid. So this is for 1 generic mana, 1 green mana, 2/2. Bear, okay. But late game relevance with Adept. Tap 4 generic mana, 2 green mana, Adapt 4. Turn it into a 6/6. So this card comes in either as a 2/2 early, but later you have it on the battlefield. You can pay 6 for it. Turns into a 6/6. I like the versatility of this card. I think he's a 3.5. Wouldn't mind having a few of them. Territorial Boar, another bear. So 2/2 for 2 mana. It's 1 generic mana, 1 green. Whenever a creature with 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, this boar card gets a +1/+1. It gains vigilance till end of turn. I'm not a fan. I don't think turning it to a 3/3 is really going to turn the gates on this guy, and just vigilance. So he comes back and he's a 2/2 blocker. I'm not seeing it. You could do a lot better at 2 mana, just like the card we just had there. This is a 2.0. Gift of Strength, 1 generic mana, 1 green mana for 2 mana for an instant trick. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains reach until end of turn. So you got to have a blocker there already. Already untapped for this guy to be relevant. Okay, he's gonna block maybe a flyer. He doesn't have to, but maybe this can also be an attacking trick as well. You go in and they double block, and you do this to one of your creatures, and you blow them out. So you can kind of 2-for-1 them that way. You can 1-for-1 them where they thought they were getting the upper hand. Solid, but it's still 2 mana, and that's not great. I think there's better ways of dealing with it just because it's a little bit more situational. Given this a 2.0, the opponent gets to choose who's blocking who. You get to choose when to play it to some degree, but you can do better with 2 mana. Root Snare, 1 generic mana and 1 green mana, 2 mana. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Just don't. The fog effect. Don't be the person playing this card. 1.0. Not a fan. Titanic Brawl. 1 generic mana, 1 green mana for instant. Note this spell costs 1 less to cast if it targets a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. So there's your Gruul, more controlling creatures, your Simic adapted creatures. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So I like this removal a lot better, even for 2 mana versus the Titanic Growth with Reach that we saw there earlier. This is a bit more lineup of what you want to be doing. This is a 3.5. We want to play this card. Steeple Creeper. So for 2 generic mana, 1 green, you get a 4/2. All right, 4 toughness. 4 toughness matters. Let's note that. Also, activated ability, 3 generic mana and 1 white, gains flying till end of turn. Awesome. It's probably going to die if they're holding back some blocker, but it's probably making them hold back some blocker in flying. This is a good reason if you're in Gruul to splash blue, get over in Teamer a bit. This, I think, is, again, just solid for being the 4 power matters, and I think you're okay playing this card, especially at a rate of 3 mana. Good 3-drop. Got the Sylvan Brush Strider, 2 generic mana, 1 green mana for a 3/2. So okay, maybe a little bit below on just stats compared to what we just saw last turn. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. Okay, incidental life gain. I'd still much rather be playing the card before it. So as such, this is a 2.0. Sagitter's Volley. So this is an instant, and for 2 generic mana and 1 green, destroy target creature with flying. This card also deals 1 damage to each creature with flying the opponent controls. So that's pretty conditional. You got to be putting against flyers. Maybe this is more sideboard relevant that you bring it in. 3's kind of tough to be holding back. Again, you want to be getting rid of flyers, but I think there's better ways to be handling flyers, like we saw with the hybrid reach card that was there earlier. I mean, if they got some bomb, you're probably sideboarding this in, so it's pretty conditional. Also, the +1/+1s get rid of all their afterlife spirits, but again, pretty situational. Axebane Beast. So 3 generic mana, 1 green, 4 total mana for a 3/4. All right, it's kind of just vanilla. I think you could do better at the 4-drops, especially some of those Gruul cards we were mentioning before, the Ceratok and the Arthrex. But then also in Simic, you can do better there too. Decent with 4 toughness, but you can do better. 2.0. Wouldn't be surprised if he makes the decks, but you can do better. Mammoth Spider. Speaking of doing better, 5-drop with reach for a 3/5. So I love this. 3, I think, is the magic power number to be blocking your opponent's flyers. 5 toughness is just a problem to deal with. There's as far as flyers go, they're not really there with the 5 power, all on their own in the set, especially at common and uncommon. I think this is the best green common. You'll take 1, maybe even 2 of these. Hey, if this fills out your 5 drop slot, awesome. There's maybe some of the other ones you want in there, maybe as you get into more controlling. But this guy, you don't mind having him in your deck. I'd want at least one, um, and I'm giving him a 4.0. I just love eyeing up this card. All right, Rampaging Rendhorde. So for 4 generic mana, 1 green, you get a 4/4 with Riot. So it could be just a 5/5 for 5, decent stats, or a 4/4 haste for 5 mana, also good. You're going to want to be doing that if you can turn it sideways and make something advantageous. I think he's solid, 3.0. Again, another 5 drop. Wouldn't mind having one. I'd rather have 2 spiders, and turn myself into a more controlling deck, but because I think there's other better cards out there as far as coming down and crashing the opponent, like this big boy. The Wrecking Beast, our final common, highest mana casting cost in green here. 5 generic mana, 2 green mana, 7 total mana for a 6/6 Riot with Trample. So you're probably not playing this guy for just a 7/7 Trample. I love the Element Surprise on this guy. 7 mana, you're getting a 6/6 haste Trample. This is worth holding out for. When if you got this in your deck, this is the kind of controlling finisher that you want. 7 mana is a lot. That's not going to be trivial, but there's some ways to get there, like the land fixing and gates lookups. 1 mana cards that we saw at the very beginning of Green Common here. So I like this guy. I think he's okay. I'll give him a 3.0 because I like the controlling aspect of Gruul. I think that's where you want to be more so with than the beatdown. Getting those +1/+1 counters on your creatures, turning those guys sideways a little bit later once you've just overwhelmed your opponent with the size and number of the creatures, more so than the removal that they have could even imagine to take for. So with that, we are finished now with Gruul and Green, and tomorrow we're returning with Simic and Blue, our last guild and our last color. But until then, Planeswalkers, Suru.